The Apache pushed open the barn doors and discovered a woman in chains. What she carried inside her, what she knew, would upend everything. Yet what Koda could not foresee was that cutting those chains would uncover a murder disguised as misfortune, ignite a web of corruption stretching into powerful hands, and force him to choose between remaining unseen or stepping into a war that could ruin them both. Before this story of reckoning moves forward, leave a comment. Where are you watching from? And do you believe that sometimes the ones we rescue are the very people who end up saving us? In the harsh expanse of Colorado, 1890, a man who craved nothing but isolation was about to learn that the abandoned farm he had purchased concealed a living soul, and that freeing her would cost him the quiet life he had fought to preserve. Koda had spent nearly 3 months searching for the right place. Remote, inexpensive, forgotten. A place where he could vanish from a world that had already taken everything from him. 5 years had passed since the slaughter. 5 years since settlers stormed his village under cover of darkness. 5 years since he returned from hunting to find his mother, his father, his sister, his wife, and his 3-year-old son burned alive in their home. 5 years since his world collapsed into smoke, screams, and the unbearable silence that followed. The attackers claimed they were hunting hostile Apache, but Koda's people had lived in peace. They had honored treaties. They had obeyed every demand made of them. It had not mattered. To some, the only acceptable Apache was a dead one. Men, women, children, elders. Fire had taken them all the same. Koda survived by erasing himself, taking work no one wanted, tracking for the army, guiding white men as they hunted his own people. Each job kept him breathing and poisoned his spirit all the same. By saving every coin, burying his rage and grief, and plotting an escape from a society that denied his humanity, the old Thornton farm had seemed perfect. 20 acres beyond Silver Creek, far enough to be ignored, close enough to barter for supplies when survival demanded it. The widow who owned the land had died 6 months earlier, peacefully in her sleep at 83, or so the town said. Her son, eager to flee westward hardship for eastern opportunity, sold the property cheap to the first buyer who paid. He did not care that the buyer was Apache. He only wanted the money and to leave before winter set in. Koda paid in cash, 3 years of wages, carefully saved, no questions, minimal paperwork. Just a simple deed transfer at the land office, ideal for a man who wanted no footprint, no memory, no name left behind. He had moved in 3 days earlier. The house was modest but sturdy. 2 rooms, a combined kitchen and living space, 1 bedroom. A stone fireplace that drew clean. Wooden floors that groaned yet held firm beneath him. A solid door, a working lock. Better than the boarding houses where landlords charged him triple and offered him the worst rooms. Better than sleeping exposed in the wilderness, alert, hunted, alone. The fields had grown wild. Mrs. Thornton had been too frail to tend them, and her son had never cared to try. Still, the soil was rich. A creek ran year-round. Timber stood close for firewood and repair. Everything he needed to endure. To grow food. To trade surplus for flour, salt, and coffee. To stop fighting. To stop running. To simply exist until death came on its own terms. The barn had been last on his list. He had only glanced inside when first viewing the land. 2 stories, older than the house, structurally sound. The main beams were solid oak. The roof sagged in places, but nothing fatal. Usable. Today marked his first real inspection. He wanted to know what tools remained, what repairs waited, what resources he could count on before winter tightened its grip. The ground level was nearly empty. Broken tools, a rusted pitchfork, a cracked bucket, rotting leather tack from when horses once lived here. Mold-spoiled hay, signs of mice, maybe raccoons, but nothing worse. Nothing useful, nothing alarming. Just an aging barn being what it was. Then he noticed the ladder to the loft, and something else. A scent, faint, wrong. Not hay, not old wood, not animals. Something else. Something organic. Something human. His instincts stirred, the same instincts that had kept him alive for years. Before his mind could reason it, his body already knew. Most people would have missed it. But Koda had spent a lifetime reading air, soil, silence, and the silence above was screaming. He climbed the ladder carefully, quietly, one hand resting on the knife at his belt. He did not know what waited above, but he knew it did not belong. Every sense warned him of danger. The loft was dark, a single window, boarded shut from the inside. Deliberate, recent. Someone had wanted this place hidden, maintained. As his eyes adjusted, he saw her. A woman, shackled by the wrists to a support beam. Heavy iron restraints, prison grade, slave chains. A length of chain barely 4 feet long, enough to reach a bucket in the corner. A waste bucket, he realized with rising fury. Enough to reach a tin cup and a nearly empty water barrel. A filthy, torn blanket, once white, long ruined. Nothing else. No food, no mercy, no dignity, no trace of humanity. The woman hovered on the edge of consciousness. Thin beyond reason, frighteningly thin. The kind of hollowed body that comes from weeks of starvation. Her dress, once fine by the quality of the cloth, hung in filthy tatters. Dirt and neglect had swallowed its color. Her hair, likely fair beneath the grime, fell in matted ropes around her face. That face was drawn tight over bone, cheekbones sharp under pale skin stretched too far. Bruises marked her arms, older ones fading to yellow, newer ones dark and swollen. More bruises marred her face, visible through the torn fabric. Bruises everywhere. Evidence of cruelty, of methodical violence repeated over time. But it was her eyes that shattered something inside Koda. They held no hope. Eyes that had surrendered. Eyes that expected only more pain. Eyes that no longer believed rescue was possible. Eyes that had already accepted death and were simply waiting for it to arrive. "Please," she whispered. Her voice was ruined, raw and broken, as if she had screamed herself hoarse weeks ago and never healed. Like she had begged and cried until her voice failed and no one ever came. "Please, just make it quick. I can't do this anymore. No more waiting. No more hoping someone will find me. No more holding on for nothing. Just kill me fast. That's all I ask. That's all I want. Please, end it." A fury unlike anything Koda had felt since the night his village burned surged through him. Since he had seen his son's small body reduced to ash, since everything that mattered had been taken from him. Someone had done this. A person, a human being. Someone had chained this woman like an animal, left her to starve, to suffer, to fade slowly in darkness. Someone had returned often enough to keep her barely alive, but denied her mercy. Had fed her hope, only to crush it again and again. "I'm not here to kill you," Koda said, keeping his voice steady and gentle. He would not add himself to her nightmare. I'm the new owner of this land. I bought this farm 3 days ago from James Thornton, Mrs. Thornton's son. I didn't know. I swear on everything I hold sacred, I had no idea you were here. What happened? Who did this to you? Who's responsible? She stared at him. Disbelief and hope fought across her face, hope losing ground. She had learned that hope was just another weapon, another way to hurt her. You're not with William? She asked weakly. I don't know anyone named William, Koda said. My name is Koda. I'm Apache. I bought this place to live quietly, to farm, to be left alone. He stopped himself. She didn't need his past. She needed help. I didn't know you were here. I would never have bought land with a prisoner on it. Tell me what happened. Tell me who did this. Tell me everything. She watched him for a long moment, weighing reality against fear, wondering if freedom could truly exist, or if this was another cruel trick. Finally she spoke. She stopped, swallowed. Her throat was so dry that each word looked like agony. Clara Wyatt. Her eyes drifted to the wall, where shallow marks had been scratched with something sharp, counting days, measuring time, clinging to sanity through routine. 7 weeks. Maybe 8. I lost track when the wall filled and I couldn't reach any higher. She drew a shaking breath. Silas Crowe. My father's business partner. He kidnapped me, brought me here in the middle of the night, chained me like this. He said I'd stay until I signed papers handing over Wyatt Industries, my inheritance, everything my father built. Thousands of jobs, millions of dollars, all of it. She coughed, a wet, broken sound, the kind that spoke of sickness settling deep in the lungs. Like pneumonia, like death arriving whether anyone finished the job or not. I refused, she said, so he left me. Comes back every few days, sometimes water, sometimes stale bread, sometimes nothing. Just enough to keep me alive, long enough to break me, long enough to make me desperate. Her voice trembled. But I won't. I'd rather die than give him what he wants. Another cough. Blood speckled her lips. I think I am dying. So if you're here to finish it, if you're one of his men checking on me, please, just do it quickly. That's all I ask. Koda stepped closer and studied the restraints. Heavy iron, professionally forged, built to last. The locks were padlocked with cheap metal, locks that looked secure at first glance, but could easily be broken if you knew how. Whoever had kept Clara Wyatt trapped here had been too sure of their control, too arrogant, too foolish. Koda could see that. They had thought she'd never escape, never find the strength to break free. I need tools to get these off, Koda muttered, his voice calm but determined. Don't move. I know you can't. Just wait here, 5 minutes, maybe less. I swear I'm going to set you free, right now, today. You won't spend another hour like this. Why? Clara asked, her voice hoarse. She sounded confused, like kindness was an unfamiliar, forgotten thing, like help was impossible. You don't know me. This isn't your problem. This isn't your fight. Silas Crowe is. He's dangerous, rich, powerful, connected to everyone who matters in Colorado. If you help me, he'll come after you. He'll destroy you. He destroys everyone who gets in his way. He destroyed my father. He'll destroy you too. Why risk it for someone like me? Why get involved in something that'll only bring you pain? Koda paused for a moment, staring at her. He saw the brokenness in her eyes, the despair that had learned not to hope anymore. But still, he spoke with conviction. "Because it's right," he said simply. "Because no one deserves this. Not you. Not anyone." He looked away for a moment, as if lost in his thoughts. Then he continued, "I can help, and I will." He thought of his own family, of the people who could have helped them but chose not to, who could have intervened but stayed quiet, who could have fought back but chose comfort over justice. 5 years ago, Koda went on, his voice tight with emotion, my entire family was murdered. My mother, father, sister, wife, and son. They were burned alive by settlers who thought all Apache needed to die. No one helped them. No one stood up. No one said, "This is wrong." Everyone let it happen. Let my family die. Let me lose everything. And I've carried that rage, that grief, that sense of injustice for 5 years. I won't be that person. I won't walk away from someone in need when I can help. I won't let anyone die alone if I can save them. He climbed down from the loft before she could argue, gathering his tools, hammer, chisel, a pry bar he had bought for repairs. He returned to her with the fury of everything he'd lost, a purpose now focused on something good. The locks were weak, despite their intimidating appearance. With 3 hard strikes each, they gave way, breaking apart with a sound that echoed like freedom, like justice. The chains fell to the floor with a metallic clatter that felt like the start of something important. Clara collapsed in his arms immediately. She had no strength left to hold herself up. Her body, starved and broken, couldn't even support her skeletal frame. She'd been chained in place for so long, her muscles had forgotten how to work. Koda caught her before she hit the floor. She weighed nothing, like holding a child, like holding death itself. "When's the last time you ate?" Koda asked gently, carrying her to the ladder and helping her down. "Real food, not stale bread or scraps." Clara's eyes were distant as she struggled to remember, her mind clouded by the fog of starvation. 4 days ago, maybe 5, she whispered, her voice cracked. He brought me bread, but it was moldy, green with mold. I ate it anyway. I didn't care anymore. I was so hungry. She paused, trying to piece together the time that had become meaningless. Maybe a week ago? Maybe more? Her voice faltered again. He's been coming less often. I think he's decided to just let me starve. Let me die slowly. Make it look natural. Then he can say I ran away after my father died. Say I couldn't handle the grief. Say I disappeared into the wilderness and died. No one will find the barn. No evidence of imprisonment. No murder. Just another woman who couldn't cope. Koda carried her carefully down the ladder. His other hand steadied him, making sure she didn't jolt or hurt herself further. Her body had suffered enough. He placed her gently on his bed, his only bed, covered her with a blanket. She was shaking, but not from the cold. The room was warm from the fire he'd started earlier. No, she was shaking from the shock, the disbelief, from the realization that she was finally free. The reality that freedom could be real, that rescue had truly come, and maybe, just maybe, she could survive this, began to sink in. You're safe now, Koda said softly, pulling a blanket over her and stoking the fire until the room became almost too warm. He made sure she was comfortable, making sure she felt secure. I'll get you water, food, medicine, whatever you need. You're safe. You're free. No one's going to chain you again. No one's going to hurt you again. I promise, on my life, I promise. Clara Wyatt whispered, her eyes drifting shut from exhaustion. No one is safe from Silas Crowe, she murmured, her breath shallow. He's too powerful, too connected, too... She coughed, blood splattering her lips. He killed my father. Made it look like a riding accident. I saw it. I was there. That's why he took me. Not just for the company, not just for the inheritance, but because I'm a witness. The only witness. I saw him do it. I saw him murder my father. And if I live, if I tell anyone, he'll lose everything. He'll kill me. He'll kill you for helping me. He'll kill anyone who knows the truth. Her eyes closed fully, and she passed out from the sheer weight of her exhaustion. The relief of safety, her body finally allowing itself to stop fighting, to stop forcing itself to stay conscious. Koda stood over her, staring down at the broken woman he had found. This stranger who had just confessed to witnessing murder and now warned him that helping her would make him a target. His quiet, isolated life, the life he had fought so hard to carve out, had suddenly become infinitely more complicated and dangerous. He could walk away. He could take her to town, drop her off at the sheriff's office or the doctor's clinic, let the authorities deal with it. He could go back to his plan of being invisible, of staying safe, of not getting involved in white people's problems. But looking at her, at the bruises, at the raw, bleeding wrists where the shackles had been, at the chain still lying on the loft floor, at the signs of weeks of torture, Koda knew he couldn't walk away. Some things were more important than safety, more important than comfort, more important than the quiet life he had hoped for. Justice mattered. Standing up for the helpless mattered. Being the person who helped, rather than the one who turned a blind eye, that mattered. Even if it was hard. Even if it was dangerous. Even if it cost everything. When Clara Wyatt woke an hour later, Koda gave her small sips of water, careful not to overwhelm her weak body after weeks of deprivation. He gave her broth, simple, just vegetables and salt, easy to digest. She cried as she drank, as though the liquid was a miracle. Like food was salvation, like she had forgotten what it felt like to have her basic needs met. "Thank you," she whispered between sips. I thought I'd die there. Thought no one would ever find me. Thought Silas Crowe had won. Thought that barn would be my grave. But you saved me. Why? She asked, her voice breaking. Why would you do this for someone you don't even know? Someone who's just going to bring you trouble? Koda met her gaze, his voice calm, filled with the weight of his own truth. Because I was there. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes being there and choosing to act instead of turning away, that's all that matters. That's all anyone can do. As Clara Wyatt rested, drifting in and out of sleep, her body trying to recover, Koda thought about the future. Silas Crowe would come back. He would eventually check on his prisoner, see if she had broken yet. He would bring supplies, or dispose of a body. He would find that Clara was gone. He would come after Koda, after her. Then war would begin. A war Koda had never asked for, but one that would find him regardless. He had bought this farm to escape violence, to stop fighting, to live in peace, to disappear, to exist without mattering to anyone. But the universe had other plans. He had bought a farm with a prisoner. He was now tangled in a conspiracy, a murder, and a danger that had no place in his life. But looking at Clara, seeing her strength even after 7 weeks of hell, her refusal to give in even when starving, her determination to seek justice instead of just escape. Koda couldn't regret it. He wouldn't regret it. Some things were worth fighting for. Some battles had to be fought, even when the cost was high, even when safety had to be sacrificed. And Clara Wyatt, she was worth it. No regret. Some battles were worth fighting. Some people were worth protecting. Some stands had to be made, even when the cost was high, even when safety was sacrificed, even when everything was at risk. This was one of those times. Clara Wyatt was one of those people. And Koda, despite everything, despite the grief that had torn at his soul, despite the yearning for peace he carried, was ready to fight again. One more time. One last time. For something that mattered. For someone who deserved the effort. For justice that had been denied far too long. Rest, Koda told Clara when she woke again, her body still weak. Build your strength. Heal. Recover. Because Clara Wyatt is going to war. We're taking down Silas Crowe. We're exposing him. We're making him pay for what he did to your father, to you, to everyone he's hurt. Are you ready for that? Ready to fight instead of hide? Ready to stand up instead of run? I've been ready since the moment he chained me, Clara answered, her eyes fierce despite her weakness. There was a fire in her gaze, a determined strength that refused to be beaten down, alive despite everything that had tried to kill her. I'll fight, however long it takes, whatever it costs, whatever I have to do. Silas Crowe is going down, and I'm going to be there to watch him fall. I'm going to testify. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what he is, what he's done. And I'm not going to stop until he's either in prison or dead. That's my promise. That's my vow. Then we do this together, Koda said. Partners, allies, warriors. Together we're stronger. Together we can win. Together we take him down. Together, Clara agreed. And for the first time in 7 weeks, for the first time since her father's murder, she smiled. It wasn't much. It wasn't long. But it was real, genuine, full of hope instead of despair. Thank you, Koda, she whispered, tears in her eyes. For everything. For freedom. For hope. For giving me a chance to fight back. I won't forget this. Ever. Clara slept for 23 hours straight. Her body finally felt safe enough to stop fighting, to stop forcing itself to stay conscious, to surrender to the exhaustion that had been building for weeks, to heal instead of just survive. Koda stayed awake the entire time, guarding, watching. His rifle was loaded and leaning against the wall within easy reach. His knife was sharp and ready at his belt, positioned where he could see both doors, front and back, the entrance and the exit leading to the fields. He'd know if anyone approached, if Silas Crowe came, if danger arrived. He used the time to think through strategy, to understand what they were facing, to plan how two people with no resources, no money, no social standing could possibly bring down a wealthy, powerful businessman who controlled one of the largest companies in Colorado Territory. Silas Crowe, according to Clara, was one of the richest men in the region, co-owner of Hartford Industries with Clara's late father, Henry Wyatt. The company manufactured mining equipment, agricultural machinery, railway components, everything the expanding West needed. They employed over 2,000 people across 3 states, worth millions. Powerful. influential, connected to governors, senators, and judges. After Henry Wyatt's death, Silas Crowe had taken control. He'd convinced everyone that Clara was unstable, grief-stricken, unable to handle reality. He spread rumors that she had disappeared because she couldn't cope, positioning himself as the responsible one, the hero keeping the company running, the trustworthy partner honoring his friend's legacy. A perfect cover for a murderer. A perfect disguise for a thief. Perfect protection from consequences. No one would believe Koda, an Apache tracker with no standing in the white community, a man whose word meant nothing in court. No one would believe Clara, the supposedly unstable heiress who had run away, who had lost her mind, who had been missing for weeks. Her accusations would be dismissed as delusions, grief-induced fantasies, the ravings of someone who couldn't accept her father's tragic accident. Against Silas Crowe's money, influence, and reputation, they had nothing except the truth and determination, and the element of surprise. Silas Crowe had thought Clara would die in that barn. He thought his secret was safe. He thought he had won. He was wrong. Koda had food ready, more substantial this time. Actual soup, made with rabbit meat he'd hunted himself. Tender, perfectly cooked. Fresh bread he'd baked that morning, cheese from the general store, butter and jam. Real nourishment, real comfort. Things that would help Clara Wyatt's body rebuild. Things that would give her strength. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, still hardly believing that food was available, that she could eat without the fear that it might be her last meal for days, that abundance was real, that mercy existed, that she was, for the first time in what felt like forever, truly free. "We need to talk about Silas Crowe," Koda said while she ate, his tone gentle but direct. "About what he did, about how we can prove it, about how we're going to bring him down."
Clara set down her spoon, took a deep breath, and started to speak, her voice catching in her throat. "I need you to tell me everything," Koda urged. "About your father's death. About Silas Crowe's crimes. About why he did this. Everything you know. Can you do that?" Clara paused for a moment, gathering her thoughts. Then once she started, it all poured out. Weeks of isolation. Weeks of nothing but replaying the murder of her father in her mind.
Week of thinking about every detail, every moment, every clue she'd missed before it was too late.
"My father, Henry Wyatt, built his company from nothing," she began. "He started 30 years ago with one small factory, making farm tools, simple plows, basic equipment. But he was brilliant, innovative, fair. He treated his workers well, paid them fairly, created profit-sharing programs, built housing for families, made sure everyone had health care." Her voice caught for a moment. "He believed—" She stopped and swallowed. "He believed success meant nothing if people had to suffer to create it. That wealth was meaningless if you destroyed lives to accumulate it." She paused, took a sip of water, and continued. "He built an empire on fairness, on integrity, on doing things right even when it cost more, even when it was harder." Clara tightened her grip on her cup. "Silas Crowe came on as a partner 15 years ago when the company was expanding fast.
Father needed someone to handle the finances while he focused on operations and innovation. Silas was brilliant with numbers, charming, sophisticated, everything Father wasn't. They complemented each other perfectly. They built something extraordinary together, or so Father thought." Her hands trembled slightly. But 6 months ago, Father started noticing discrepancies. Small things at first, numbers that didn't quite add up, accounts that seemed off by tiny amounts. He investigated quietly. Didn't want to accuse Silas Crowe without proof. Didn't want to destroy their partnership over mistakes or misunderstandings. But it wasn't mistakes. It was embezzlement. Systematic, sophisticated. Her voice grew firmer. Silas Crowe had been stealing for years, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions, siphoning money through fake vendors, false invoices, and complicated schemes. Father barely understood it. Even after he uncovered everything, he documented it all, gathered the proof, she continued, her voice growing colder. Then he confronted Silas privately. He gave him a chance to explain, to make things right. Father didn't want scandal. He didn't want to destroy Silas's reputation. He just wanted the money back, wanted Silas to resign quietly, to disappear without drama. Tears streamed down Clara's face, but she didn't sob, didn't break. She just cried quietly, forcing herself to keep speaking, to finish. Silas Crowe refused, she said, her voice hardening. He laughed, said Father didn't have proof that would stand in court, said any evidence could be explained away as accounting errors, said that if Father tried to expose him, Silas would destroy Father's reputation. He'd claim Father was senile, losing his mind, that he was making wild accusations because he was getting old, couldn't handle the business anymore. He'd turn everything around, make Father the villain. Clara stopped for a moment, struggling to hold herself together. 2 days later, Father had his accident. We were riding together, something we did every Sunday morning. Father's horse suddenly bolted, threw him. He broke his neck, died instantly. Everyone said it was tragic. But even the best riders have accidents. That horses are unpredictable. No one questioned it. No one investigated beyond the most basic inquiry. Why would they? A respected businessman dies in a riding accident? Sad, but not suspicious. Her hands tightened on the cup, and her voice dropped to a whisper. Except I saw it. I was riding behind Father. I saw Silas Crowe there, in the bushes, maybe 20 yards away. I saw him raise something. A gun, probably, though I couldn't. Her voice trailed off as she relived the moment. It was hard to tell for sure from that distance, but Clara Wyatt had seen enough. She had seen him spook the horse, seen the saddle snap. Later she realized the saddle had been tampered with, weakened on purpose, designed to break under stress, to make her father's fall fatal. She had seen it all, and Silas Crowe had seen her see it. Their eyes met just for a second, but it was enough. She knew. He knew. And he knew she knew. Clara stopped speaking, drank some more water, and steadied herself before continuing. For 2 weeks after my father's funeral, Silas Crowe left me alone. He let me grieve, let me cry, let me bury my father and mourn in peace. I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe it had been an accident. Maybe I'd seen things that weren't there. Maybe grief was making me paranoid. She took a shaky breath. Then he came to the house. Our house. My father's house. He came with legal papers, transfer documents, giving him full control of Hartford Industries. He said my father would have wanted it. That I was too young, too inexperienced, too grief-stricken to run a company. He said it was best for everyone. Best for me, best for the employees, best for my father's legacy. Clara's voice hardened. I refused. I showed him my father's will. It left everything to me. Full control. Silas Crowe had no legal claim, no right to the company. He was just an employee, a well-paid one, but an employee nonetheless. Not an heir.
When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper, full of raw pain. That's when he told me the truth. That he'd killed my father. That he'd make my death look like suicide. He said, "Poor grief-stricken daughter couldn't live without her father." Unless I signed. That was the deal. Sign the papers or die. Give him everything or lose everything, including my life. I refused, she continued. I told him I'd go to the authorities. I'd expose him. I'd make sure everyone knew what he'd done. He laughed, she said bitterly. He said no one would believe me, that I was hysterical, unstable, grief-stricken. He said he'd have me committed to an asylum if I tried. He'd already started spreading rumors about my mental state, that people were questioning my stability. He said no one would believe me against his word. Clara wiped her face, trying to steady herself. Then he had his men take me, in the middle of the night. They drugged me. I woke up chained in that barn. Silas Crowe came the next day and said I'd stay there until I signed. Or died. That simple. That horrible. He beat me when I refused. Starved me. Left me in darkness. Came back every few days, asking again. Seeing if I'd broken. Seeing if I was desperate enough to sign. But I never signed. I'd rather die than give him my father's company. I'd rather die than dishonor my father's legacy by handing it to his murderer. She sobbed now. All the grief, the terror, and the rage she'd kept buried for so long, finally breaking free. Koda moved to her, pulling her into his arms, letting her cry, letting her break down, letting her feel safe enough to let go, to grieve instead of just survive. He won't win, Koda said when her sobs finally quieted. We won't let him. We'll expose him, prove what he did. We'll bring him to justice. I promise you that. On my life, I promise. How? Clara whispered, her voice small, broken, lost. We have no proof. My father's body is buried. The saddle was destroyed. The evidence is gone. It's my word against Silas Crowe's. I'm the crazy heiress, the unstable woman, the grief-stricken daughter. Who will believe me? We'll find proof, Koda said, his voice certain, determined. There has to be something. Your father documented the embezzlement, right? Where would he keep that proof, those records? Clara's eyes widened. She sat up straighter, a spark of hope igniting in her tired eyes. The safe, she said. Father had a hidden safe in his study. He didn't trust banks, didn't trust lawyers. He said powerful men could be bought, that secrets were only safe if you controlled them completely. He kept everything important in that safe. His documentation, his evidence, his insurance against betrayal. Where is this safe? Koda asked. Behind the bookshelf, Clara said, her voice steadier now. The third section from the left. You pull specific books in a certain order, and the bookshelf swings open. There's a safe behind it. Father showed me when I was 12, made me memorize the combination. He said, if anything happens to me, Clara, look here. Everything important will be here. Everything you need to know. Everything you need to protect yourself. She paused, eyes distant. I never imagined I'd actually need it, but now. So we break in, Koda said, his voice resolute. We get the documents. Bring them to the authorities. Prove Silas Crowe is a thief and a murderer. Expose everything. It's not that simple, Clara said. Silas Crowe lives.
Now, in Clara Wyatt's father's house, the Hartford mansion, it was no longer just their family home. It had become Silas Crowe's fortress. He had security, staff, guards, probably. People loyal to him because he paid well. They couldn't just walk in through the front door.
We can't.
Clara stopped, thinking.
Unless we go at night, when he's alone, when the staff is minimal, when we have a chance to get in and out without being seen. It's still incredibly dangerous, but it might be possible.
When does Silas Crowe travel for business? Koda asked. When would the house be least guarded?
I don't know, she answered bluntly. I've been chained in a barn for 7 weeks. I don't know his schedule. I don't know anything about his current life.
We'll need to find out, Koda said, his voice steady. We'll need to watch him. Plan carefully. Over the next 5 days, they prepared. Clara slowly regained her strength, eating regularly, walking, building the muscle that had atrophied. She was becoming human again, instead of a ghost. Koda rode into town daily, buying supplies. He played the invisible Apache role, someone people talked freely around because they didn't think he understood, didn't think he mattered.
Someone they didn't think was a threat. Someone they didn't even really see as human. And he listened. He gathered information. He learned about Silas Crowe's life, his schedule, his habits, his weaknesses. He learned that Silas was beloved in Silver Creek, seen as a hero, a responsible businessman holding together Henry Wyatt's legacy, a generous philanthropist donating to churches and schools, an upstanding citizen admired by everyone. The perfect disguise for a monster. Koda also learned that Silas Crowe would be traveling to Denver next week for important business meetings. He'd be gone for 3 days. The house would have a skeleton staff, just a housekeeper and groundskeeper during the day, 1 night guard. Much more manageable than full security. Koda turned to Clara. We do it. Next Tuesday night, we break in. We get your father's evidence. We expose Silas Crowe. Whatever happens, whatever the risk, we do this. I'm done being a victim. Done being a prisoner. Even after escaping the chains. Done letting evil win. It's time to fight back. Time to take control. Time to make Silas Crowe pay. Are you certain? Clara asked, her voice small, broken. If we're caught, if something goes wrong, if we're caught. We're dead, Clara said, bluntly, without flinching. But Koda, if we do nothing, I'm dead anyway. Silas Crowe will never stop looking for me once he realizes I've escaped. He'll never stop trying to silence me. Never stop hunting me. This isn't just about justice anymore. It's about survival. We expose him, or we spend the rest of our lives running. And I'm done running. I'm done hiding. I'm done being afraid. We fight. We win. Or we die trying. But we fight. They spent the week preparing. Koda teaching Clara not just self-defense, but combat. How to fight dirty. How to use surprise and desperation. How to survive when everything goes wrong. Not enough to make her a warrior, but enough to give her a chance. Enough to help her protect herself if they got separated. If he fell, and she had to continue alone. They also talked. Really talked. About more than just the plan. About themselves. About who they were beyond victim and rescuer. Beyond prisoner and savior. Beyond the crisis that had brought them together. Clara talked about her childhood, about being raised by servants because her parents were always working, about longing for real connection, real family, real love, about her father being distant but trying, about losing her mother young and never really recovering, about being lonely in a mansion full of people,
about having everything money could buy and nothing that actually mattered. She spoke of how her father had changed in his final years, how he had started spending real time with her, how they'd begun building the relationship she had always wanted, how they'd finally been building something meaningful. Then Silas Crowe had taken that away, had murdered her father just as she was finally getting to know him, just when she was finally getting the father she'd always needed. Koda spoke of his childhood too, growing up Apache, learning to hunt from his father, to track from his mother, to laugh from his sister. About his wife, how they had married at 17, young and in love. About his son, the perfect child who looked just like his mother. About simple happiness. About the dreams he had once carried. It was about community. About belonging. About losing it all in a single night. About 5 years of grief, rage, and isolation. About becoming invisible to survive. About giving up on everything except mere existence. About being dead inside, even while his body kept moving. "You brought me back," Koda said one evening, as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset. Clara Wyatt was strong enough now to walk, to sit outside, to be part of the world again instead of trapped in the dark. Finding you, fighting for you, having a purpose again, it brought me back to life. Made me remember why being alive matters, why standing up matters, why connecting with another person matters. "You saved me, Clara," Koda continued, his voice soft but firm. "As much as I saved you, maybe more. You gave me hope." Clara met his gaze, her eyes full of unspoken emotion. "When I'd given up completely, when I was ready to die, when I thought evil had won and good was just a story we tell children, you proved me wrong. You proved that good people still exist, that courage exists, that mercy exists." She paused, feeling the weight of it all. "You didn't have to help me. You could have walked away, but you didn't. You chose to fight. You chose to care. You chose to be the person who stands up. And that changed everything. Changed my whole understanding of the world, of people, of what's possible. So thank you for that, for everything." Their eyes met again, held. Something unspoken passed between them. Something that felt like more than gratitude, more than alliance, more than partnership. Something that felt like love beginning, like connection deepening, like two broken people recognizing each other, like healing happening through shared purpose, mutual respect, and growing affection. But before either could name it, before either could explore what was growing between them, Tuesday arrived. The night of their infiltration, the night they would risk everything. The night that would determine whether justice could win, whether truth mattered, whether two desperate people could actually bring down an empire of lies. They'd find out soon enough. They waited until 2 a.m., the deepest part of the night, when even the most vigilant guards started to doze. When the world was at its quietest, and darkness was complete, perfect for moving unseen. Koda and Clara approached the Hartford mansion from the back, moving through the expansive gardens, using shadows cast by a half moon. They moved silently, Koda's tracking skills and Clara's knowledge of the property combining perfectly. Every step calculated, every movement deliberate. The house was a monster. 3 full stories plus an attic, dozens of rooms. Built 15 years ago when Henry Wyatt's success had been undeniable, when his fortune had seemed limitless, a symbol of achievement, of empire, of the American dream realized. Now it was occupied by the man who had murdered its builder, now corrupted, now a fortress protecting evil instead of housing good. The back servant's entrance was locked, but it was an old brass lock, a standard mechanism, nothing sophisticated. Koda picked it in under 30 seconds. They slipped inside, finding themselves in the kitchen. Dark, cold, the smell of yesterday's bread mingled with the stone that never quite warmed. It felt familiar to Clara, but foreign to Koda. Both were alert. Both were ready. Clara led the way now. She knew this house. She had grown up here. She knew which floorboards creaked, which doors squeaked, which hallways held servants' quarters, which stairs were the safest. She navigated her childhood home with the familiarity of muscle memory, despite the weeks of captivity. They reached the grand staircase, massive, sweeping, designed to impress visitors, to demonstrate wealth, to make clear that Henry Wyatt had succeeded beyond anyone's dreams. Clara paused at the bottom, looking up at the walls lined with portraits, her ancestors, her parents, herself at various ages, 5 years old with missing teeth, 10 years old in riding clothes, 15 years old at her debut, 21 at her university graduation. And Henry Wyatt, her father, in multiple portraits, young and ambitious, middle-aged and successful, older and satisfied, all of them showing the same kind eyes, the same gentle smile, the same integrity that had been his defining characteristic, the same goodness that had gotten him killed. "He was a good man," Clara whispered, tears threatening. "He didn't deserve." "No," Koda agreed softly. "He didn't. But we're going to make sure Silas Crowe pays for what he's done. For everything." "We're going to make it right," Koda said, his voice full of fire. "We're going to honor him. We're going to expose his killer. Come on, we're not done yet." They climbed to the second floor, moving carefully, their steps light and silent. They stayed alert, watching for guards, listening for movement, prepared to fight or flee. But the house was silent, the staff asleep, the guard probably dosing at his post, no one expecting anyone to slip past them, no one imagining someone would dare. The hallway stretched ahead, dark except for the pale moonlight filtering through the tall windows. Portraits lined the walls, showing family history, legacy. Everything now controlled by a murderer. "The study is at the end," Clara Wyatt whispered, barely audible, her voice tight with emotion. "East Wing. Father spent every evening there. It's where we'd talk, where he'd teach me about business, about integrity, about being a good person in a world that rewards being bad. It was our place, our sanctuary." She stopped, her voice breaking, the violation clear in her eyes. "And now, Silas Crowe." She didn't finish. The desecration was already too obvious. They reached the study door, locked. A heavy brass mechanism, more sophisticated than the one on the kitchen door. Koda worked quickly, his fingers steady despite the pressure. It took him almost 2 minutes to pick the lock, each second feeling like an eternity. Every sound amplified, every shadow a potential threat. Finally, he heard the click. The door opened.
They slipped inside. Koda closed it behind them. Clara Wyatt immediately moved to the bookshelf. "Third section from the left," she said, pulling books from their places in a specific sequence. Her father had made her memorize it years ago, had taught her to remember in case something ever happened to him.
Click. A subtle sound. The bookshelf shifted, the hidden hinges creaking. Clara pushed, and it swung open. Behind it, a small safe was built into the wall. Combination lock. Her hands shook, but she steadied herself. First number. Second. Third. Fourth. Click. The safe opened. Inside were papers, documents, folders, everything Henry Wyatt had gathered, everything he had documented. Clara pulled it all out, her heart pounding. There was a metal box, too. She grabbed everything, clutching it like treasure, like proof, like justice made tangible. "This is it," she whispered. "This is Father's evidence. His insurance policy." A sound downstairs. Voices. Multiple voices. Footsteps coming closer. Coming upstairs. Coming fast. Someone had seen them. Someone had alerted. "Who?" Koda whispered. "The guard? Staff? Someone else?" Koda moved to the door, listening. At least 3 people, maybe 4. Heavy boots. Men. Armed, probably. They were searching the house, coming to the study, coming for them. "We need to go," Koda said urgently. "Now." "The window," Clara said. "3rd floor. It's a 20-foot drop onto the stone terrace." "I can't," she said, her voice weak. "I'm still too weak. I'll break bones. "Then we fight," Koda said, his tone grim. "Hide. Do something, because, Clara, we're trapped, and they're coming." The footsteps were closer, right outside the door. No time left. No options left. Nowhere to run. The door burst open, light flooding in. Torches, lanterns, revealing them, exposing them. Elimination of escape. Silas Crowe stood there, looking nothing like a man who should have been in Denver. He looked like someone who'd expected this, who'd planned for this, who'd set a trap. He was well dressed, even at 2 a.m., like he'd been waiting, been ready. A gun in his hand, a cold smile on his face. Behind him, 3 men, large, brutal-looking, armed, dangerous. "Clara," Silas Crowe said, his voice almost friendly, like greeting an acquaintance instead of confronting the woman he'd tortured. "How wonderful to see you vertical. And you've brought a friend, I see. The Apache who bought the Thornton farm. I wondered where you'd gone. Wondered who'd been foolish enough to help you. Wondered how you escaped. Mystery solved." He gestured to the largest man behind him. "Thomas," he said, "take them, both of them. We'll finish this tonight, permanently." "No more delays, no more chances for escape. Tonight it ends." Thomas moved forward. Enormous, muscular, eyes that had seen violence and enjoyed it. He grabbed Clara roughly, pulling her toward him. She fought, weeks of recovery giving her some strength, but not enough. Thomas backhanded her casually. She fell, blood spilling onto her lip. Koda exploded. Years of rage finding an outlet. He lunged at Thomas, fast, skilled, decades of survival making him deadly. They fought. Brutal. Desperate. Thomas was huge, but slow. Koda was smaller, but faster. He landed hits, drew blood, made the giant stumble. Behind them, Clara grabbed something from the safe, more papers, the metal box, evidence. She shoved them into her dress, trying to reach the window, trying to escape while the men were focused on the fight. Clara Wyatt froze, her eyes locked on Silas Crowe as he moved, blocking her path. His gun was aimed straight at her chest. "Don't move," he spat, "or I'll shoot your Apache friend."
Your choice, Clara. Save yourself and watch him die. Or surrender, and maybe, just maybe, I'll let you both live a little longer. Not likely, but possible. Choose. Clara's heart raced. She wanted to fight, wanted to save Koda, but she could see the gun, the cold certainty in Silas Crowe's eyes. She froze, desperate for a way out. "Let him go," she pleaded. "This is between us. He's not part of this. He just found me, just helped. He doesn't deserve this."
"He's absolutely part of this now," Silas Crowe interrupted, his voice cruel. "You made him part of it. You involved him. You brought him here. His blood is on your hands as much as mine. Clara, you've always been soft, always cared too much. Your father's daughter in that way. It's what made you easy to manipulate, easy to hurt, because you care, because you're weak, because you're not willing to do what's necessary."
Behind Silas Crowe, Koda and Boone Rask still fought, their struggle desperate and wild. Koda was winning. He disarmed Boone of the knife he'd drawn, knocking him unconscious with a swift blow to the temple. Koda turned to find Clara, and Silas Crowe had her. His gun pressed to her head, a metal box in his other hand, taken while Clara had been distracted, watching Koda fight. "Move and she dies," Silas Crowe said, his tone cold, businesslike. "Don't test me, Apache. I've killed before. I'll kill again." It's easy once you cross that line. Once you realize people are just obstacles, just problems to eliminate. So easy. "Let her go," Koda said, his voice calm but deadly. "You hurt her and you gain nothing. You lose everything. Let her go and we'll negotiate." "Negotiate?" Silas Crowe laughed, genuinely amused. "There's nothing to negotiate. You have nothing I want, nothing I need. You two are problems I'm solving tonight." He turned to the men behind him, his voice shifting to cold, authoritative command. "New plan. We stage a break-in. The savage Apache breaks into the Hartford mansion, tries to rob it. Clara Wyatt, grief-stricken heiress who'd been staying in an asylum, just happened to be visiting tonight. Wrong place, wrong time. The Apache kills her during the robbery. The sheriff arrives, kills the Apache in righteous defense. Tragic, but tidy. Everyone dies. I'm the hero who tried to stop it. No loose ends, no witnesses. Perfect." Clara Wyatt glared at him, her voice shaking but fierce. "People will know." "They'll believe what I tell them," Silas Crowe sneered. "Because Clara Wyatt, I'm Silas Crowe, respected businessman, pillar of the community, philanthropist, good citizen. And you?" He looked at her with contempt. "You're nobody. Just a dead girl who'll be forgotten by next week. And you," he turned to Koda, "you're an Apache. You'll be remembered as proof that savages can't be trusted. That's your legacy. That's how you'll be remembered, as proof that I was right all along." He raised the gun, aimed it at Clara Wyatt's head, his finger tightening on the trigger. "Goodbye, Clara," he said with a cold smile. "You were always too stubborn for your own good. Cost your father his life, too. Stubbornness runs in the family, apparently." Koda moved. Despite the distance, despite the odds, despite knowing he probably wouldn't make it in time. He couldn't watch. Couldn't let her die. He couldn't fail again. He lunged, knocking Silas Crowe's arm just as the gun fired. Bang! The shot rang out, deafening in the confined space. The bullet hit somewhere. Not Clara Wyatt's head, maybe her body, maybe the wall, maybe nothing vital, maybe everything happened at once. Koda and Silas Crowe were still fighting, desperate, vicious,
Fighting for life, for justice, for everything. Boone Rask stirred, groaning, starting to wake. The other two guards rushed in, grabbing Clara Wyatt, trying to restrain her. Clara Wyatt grabbed a heavy bronze bookend shaped like a lion. She swung it hard, hitting one guard across the skull. He dropped like a stone. She grabbed his gun, aimed it at the second guard, shaking, terrified, but determined. "Get back," she said, her voice trembling but steady. "Get back or I shoot. I swear I will." The guard lunged, trying to grab the gun. It went off. Bang! He fell, clutching his leg, wounded, not dead, but out of the fight. Koda and Silas Crowe were still struggling. Silas Crowe had pulled a knife, slashing at Koda. He caught Koda's shoulder, pain, blood. But Koda didn't stop. Couldn't stop. He grabbed Silas Crowe's wrist, twisted it, the knife clattering away. Clara Wyatt aimed the gun at Silas Crowe. "Stop! Stop or I shoot!" "Silas Crowe," she said, her voice unwavering. "It's over. We have the evidence. We have witnesses. You're done." Silas Crowe looked at her, at the gun, at Koda holding him, at his men down or unconscious, at the failure of his plan, at the end of everything. He screamed, pure rage, pure hate, and lunged at Clara one last time. The desperation in Silas Crowe's eyes was palpable, trying to kill Clara Wyatt even if it killed him in the process. He tried to drag her with him, tried to finish what he started. But Clara, her hands shaking but her resolve firm, fired. The bullet hit Silas Crowe's leg. Not fatal, she aimed low, but enough to bring him down. He screamed, clutching his leg, blood pooling around him as he fell. "Sheriff!" Clara called out, her voice steady despite the chaos, the blood, and the violence.
"I'm Clara Wyatt, the missing heiress, and I have proof that Silas Crowe murdered my father, embezzled from Hartford Industries, kidnapped and tortured me for 7 weeks, and attempted to murder both me and Koda tonight." She pointed at him. This man is a killer, a thief, a monster. And I'm pressing charges for every crime, every violation. He's finally done." She handed over the documents to the sheriff. Koda's evidence, the metal box, proof, the truth that Silas Crowe had tried so desperately to bury. Silas Crowe attempted to speak, tried to deny it, to manipulate, to do what he'd always done, lie his way out. But Sheriff Caleb Holt was already reading, already understanding the full extent of Silas Crowe's crimes. "William Morrison," the sheriff said, his voice heavy with disgust as he looked down at his prisoner. "You're under arrest for murder, for embezzlement, for kidnapping, for attempted murder, for everything. God help you, because no one else will." They took Silas Crowe away, bleeding, screaming, begging, claiming injustice, claiming conspiracy, claiming he was the victim. But it was pathetic, broken, done. Clara Wyatt collapsed, all the weight of everything hitting her at once. The adrenaline that had carried her through the nightmare drained, leaving only terror, relief, trauma, and victory, all mixed together. Koda caught her, held her, keeping her from falling. "It's over," he said softly, his voice filled with relief. "Really over. You did it. You won." "We won," Clara corrected, her voice gentle but sure. I couldn't have done this without you. You saved me, freed me, fought for me, protected me. You're the reason I'm alive, the reason justice happened. Thank you, she whispered, tears filling her eyes. Thank you for everything. Thank you for trusting me. Koda smiled faintly, his eyes softening. Thank you for being brave, for fighting, for giving me a reason to fight again. You saved me too, Clara. You gave me purpose, gave me hope. After 5 years of nothing, you gave me everything. They held each other in the quiet of the moment. Two broken souls who had found each other, who had fought impossible odds together, and who had emerged victorious over evil. Together. The battle was over. Justice had won. And somehow, against everything, they'd both survived. They had both found salvation in each other. They discovered that sometimes the people we're meant to save are the ones who end up saving us. Silas Crowe's trial lasted 3 weeks. 3 weeks of testimony, 3 weeks of evidence, 3 weeks of truth finally exposed after months of lies. Clara Wyatt testified, telling everything about witnessing her father's murder, about the sabotaged saddle, about Silas Crowe's confession, about the kidnapping, about 7 weeks chained in darkness, about starvation, beatings, and systematic torture. She spoke clearly and calmly, presenting facts without hysteria, without the instability Silas Crowe had claimed she had. She proved to everyone that she was entirely sane, entirely credible, and entirely right. Koda testified too. He told the court about finding Clara Wyatt, about the chains, about her condition, skeletal, injured, traumatized. About Silas Crowe's attack, about the attempted murder, about overhearing Silas Crowe's confession when he thought he was winning. He documented Clara Wyatt's injuries, the bullet wound in her side. Silas Crowe's shot had grazed her ribs, painful but not fatal. He also testified about the evidence of prolonged starvation, the marks from shackles, the bruises in various stages of healing. Boone Rask, Silas Crowe's enforcer, testified in exchange for a reduced sentence, confirming everything. He confirmed the kidnapping. He confirmed Clara Wyatt had been tortured. He confirmed that Silas Crowe was guilty of every crime. Boone Rask had chained Clara Wyatt on Silas Crowe's orders. He confirmed the beatings when she refused to sign, confirmed the plan to let her starve, confirmed the murder plot, all of it, everything. Financial investigators testified, expert forensic accountants who'd spent weeks combing through Hartford Industries books. They found exactly what Henry Wyatt had documented. Embezzlement. Hundreds of thousands of dollars stolen over a decade. Fake vendors, false invoices, money siphoned through elaborate schemes. All traced back to Silas Crowe. All proven beyond doubt. In Henry Wyatt's documents, the ones Clara Wyatt had risked everything to retrieve. They proved motive. They showed Henry Wyatt had confronted Silas Crowe, that Silas Crowe knew he was caught, that Silas Crowe had murdered Henry Wyatt to protect his theft. The timeline, the motive, the proof, it was all there, everything the jury needed. Silas Crowe tried every defense, every excuse. He said he was innocent. He claimed he was being railroaded by prejudice against successful men. But none of it worked. The proof was too strong, too clear, too overwhelming. The witnesses were too credible, and the evidence was too damning. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. When they came back, the verdict was clear. Guilty on all counts.
first-degree murder of Henry Wyatt, kidnapping of Clara Wyatt, attempted murder of Clara Wyatt, embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy. Everything. The courtroom erupted. Some cheered, others were stunned. They had believed Silas Crowe's lies, thought he was a good man, thought Clara Wyatt was crazy. Now they had to confront the truth and accept they'd been wrong, recognize the evil they had defended. The judge's sentence came swift and harsh. Death by hanging, plus restitution of all stolen funds. Every penny returned to Hartford Industries, all personal property and assets seized and transferred to Clara Wyatt, the rightful heir and victim. Silas Crowe screamed, begged, cried. He claimed injustice, claimed the jury was biased, claimed the judge was corrupt, even claimed Clara Wyatt had seduced them all somehow, desperate enough to accuse her of witchcraft. It was pathetic, broken, and revealed his true nature without charm or lies to hide behind. They took him away to prison, to await execution, to face the consequences he'd spent his whole life thinking he'd never face. 6 weeks later, they hanged him. It was a public execution, as was custom for murder. Half the town attended, some for justice, some for spectacle, some to make sure the monster was really dead. Clara Wyatt didn't attend. She stayed home at Koda's farm, which had become their farm, and focused on the future instead of the past, on building instead of destroying, on living instead of dying. Koda didn't attend either. Justice had been served, vengeance satisfied. Watching a man hang, even an evil man, wasn't something he needed, wasn't something that would heal anything. It wouldn't bring back his family, wouldn't undo Clara Wyatt's suffering. It would just be death. And he had seen enough death for a lifetime. After Silas Crowe's execution, after the estate was fully settled, after every legal detail was resolved, Clara Wyatt inherited everything. Hartford Industries, the mansion, all the properties, all the assets. She became one of the richest women in the Colorado Territory, possibly in the entire West. She stood in the Denver courthouse when the final documents were signed, when ownership was officially transferred. She became, on paper, everything her father had wanted her to be. Heir, owner, controller of an empire. But she felt nothing. The money didn't matter. The wealth didn't bring happiness. None of it brought back her father. None of it brought back the 7 weeks stolen from her life. None of it erased the trauma, the fear, the pain. What mattered, what truly mattered, was sitting beside Koda, who had saved her, who fought for her, who proved that goodness existed, that courage existed, that love existed, even in darkness. After leaving the courthouse, Clara Wyatt made her decision. "I'm selling controlling interest in Hartford Industries," she told Koda, to people Father would have trusted. "And I'm using the money, the fortune I inherited, for something that matters more than accumulating more wealth." "What?" Koda asked, though he thought he knew, though he had seen her changing, seen her thinking, seen her planning something bigger than just revenge, something more than just building an empire. "I'm going to use it to help," Clara Wyatt said. "To build something that lasts, something that matters, something good." Clara Wyatt looked at Koda, her eyes bright with determination, a spark of life returning to her that hadn't been there even before her captivity. "I want to build what my father would have built if he'd lived," she said, her voice strong.
What you showed me is possible. People can be better. Communities can change. Love is stronger than hate. I want to use this fortune for good, for real good, for changing the world instead of just existing in it. Koda met her gaze, his own heart filled with a quiet certainty. Can we do that? Can we build that together? Yes, he said, without hesitation. That's perfect. That honors your father, honors what we've survived, and creates meaning from pain. Yes, we build it together. We build everything together. A month later, they married. Their Apache ceremony had taken place right after Silas Crowe's arrest, spiritual, cultural, personal. But now they made it legal. American ceremony, legal papers. No question, no challenge. No one could claim their union wasn't real. It was a small ceremony. Dr. Samuel Reed officiated, and only a few close friends attended. People who had stood by them, who had believed them, who had acted when it mattered. Apache traditions blended with American customs, two cultures coming together, two people becoming one, two broken souls finding wholeness in each other. The town had plenty to say. A rich white heiress marrying a poor Apache farmer? Scandalous. Shocking. Completely against every social rule. Clara Wyatt, with all her wealth, could have had anyone. Wealthy businessman, sophisticated gentleman, someone appropriate. But she chose him, the savage, the Apache, the nobody. Clara didn't care. They returned to the farm, not to the Hartford mansion. Clara Wyatt sold it. Too many memories, too much pain, too much connection to Silas Crowe. She sold it to a family who'd lost their home in a fire, sold it cheap, ensuring it went to people who needed it, people who'd fill it with love instead of hatred, who'd make it a home again. Koda's farm, their farm, that was home. Simple, honest, built on land purchased fairly, built on dreams of peace, built on love instead of violence. That was where they belonged. Clara Wyatt's physical recovery took 6 weeks. The bullet wound had passed through, missing vital organs by inches, healed by Dr. Samuel Reed's careful attention. The starvation took longer. Her body needed months to truly rebuild, to remember what health felt like, to become strong again instead of just surviving. But her emotional recovery? That took even longer. Nightmares. Panic attacks in dark spaces. Terror whenever someone approached unexpectedly. Trauma that couldn't be rushed, couldn't be forced. It could only be lived through, with patience, support, and love. Koda stayed with her, every day, every night. When nightmares woke her screaming, when panic made her hyperventilate, when darkness took her back to the barn, he held her. He talked her through it, reminded her that she was safe, that she was free, that Silas Crowe was dead, that the nightmare was over, even when her mind couldn't accept it yet. They worked together on the farm, planting, harvesting, building, creating life from the soil. They created purpose from routine. They created meaning from simple, honest work. They talked about the future, about what they wanted to build, about how to use Clara Wyatt's fortune to change things, to create the community they'd both been denied, to build the world they wanted to live in. Hospital first, Clara decided. People are dying because they can't afford doctors, because white doctors won't treat Apache patients, because Chinese herbalists are dismissed as quacks, because there's no place that treats everyone equally. We fix that. We build a hospital for everyone. One that combines the best of all traditions: Western medicine, Apache healing, Chinese herbs. Whatever works, whatever helps people. They broke ground on the hospital 4 months after Silas Crowe's execution. The hospital was a state-of-the-art facility, the first of its kind in the region. Dr. Samuel Reed served as chief physician, and alongside him Apache healers worked as staff, with white doctors who had agreed to work with them. An unprecedented, controversial, yet perfect step forward. Then came the school, completed in just 8 months. It welcomed all children, teaching both English and Apache languages, both American and Apache histories, fostering understanding, building friendships, and creating hope through knowledge. After that, they built a community center, a massive structure on the edge of town. Weekly potlucks brought families together. Apache elders taught traditional skills like tracking, plant identification, and survival techniques, while white families learned new perspectives. Children of all races played together, tearing down walls bit by bit, meal by meal, conversation by conversation, and friendship by friendship. The town transformed slowly. Not everyone changed. Some held on to their prejudices, died holding on to their hate. But enough did. Enough saw. Enough understood that maybe people were just people. That differences were more fascinating than threatening. That cooperation could build more than conflict. And through it all, Clara Wyatt and Koda lived simply, despite their wealth. They farmed their land, worked side by side with their neighbors, never living in a mansion or trying to tower over the community. They proved that wealth didn't corrupt, that power didn't have to dominate. They had everything, but chose to share it. 1 year after Silas Crowe's death, as the hospital prepared for its grand opening, trouble came one last time. A rider arrived, urgent, panicked. "Miss Wyatt, Mr. Koda, come quick! There's trouble at the sheriff's office!" They rode into town, finding chaos. A crowd had gathered, shouting, anger and fear hanging in the air. Something was wrong. Inside the sheriff's office, there was Boone Rask. Once Silas Crowe's enforcer, he'd testified against Silas to get a reduced sentence of 10 years instead of hanging. He was supposed to be safely locked up in territorial prison. But 3 days ago he had escaped during a transport, killed a guard, and now he was here in Silver Creek, armed and holding hostages, with nothing left to lose. "I want Clara Wyatt!" Boone Rask shouted from inside, his voice raw, desperate, almost insane. "Bring her to me or I start killing people. She destroyed my life, got me imprisoned, ruined everything. She owes me. Bring her now." The new sheriff, an honest man who had replaced Sheriff Caleb Holt, after Sheriff Holt had been quietly encouraged to resign due to Silas Crowe's crimes, saw Clara Wyatt arrive. "Miss Wyatt, you can't be here," the sheriff said, his voice tense with urgency. "He's dangerous, unstable. He's already shot Deputy Owen Pike, wounded him badly. We're trying to negotiate, but he's not rational. He just wants revenge." Clara Wyatt understood instantly. "He wants to kill me," she said, "to punish me for testifying, for destroying Silas Crowe, for surviving." "Absolutely not," Koda said, his voice firm and unyielding. "You're not going in there. He'll kill you. That's what he wants. It's the only reason he came back." But Clara Wyatt interrupted. "The clerk, Martha Keene, the woman filing papers, maybe others, they'll die because of me. Because Boone Rask blames me. I have to try. I have to give him what he wants. A chance to say whatever he needs to say." to face me. Maybe I can talk him down. Maybe I can end this without more people dying. I'm going with you, Koda said, his voice leaving no room for argument. I'm not letting you face him alone, not letting you sacrifice yourself. We go together or not at all.
They approached the door slowly, hands visible, clearly unarmed. Trusting that Boone Rask wanted a confrontation more than he wanted immediate bloodshed. That he would take prisoners over corpses, at least temporarily.
Boone?
Clara Wyatt called, her voice steady despite the terror she felt. She knew this could end badly.
It's me, Clara Wyatt. I'm here. Let the hostages go, and we'll talk. Just you and me and Koda. Whatever you want. Just let the innocent people go.
Silence followed.
Then, the door creaked open, just a crack. And there he stood, Boone Rask, wild-eyed, desperate, and completely unhinged. Weeks of imprisonment, guilt, and rage had cracked something deep inside him. He was shaking, holding a gun, the barrel pointed erratically in their direction. "Come in," he growled, voice rough, frayed with emotion. "Both of you. Everyone who destroyed my life. Come in and face what you did to me." They stepped inside. The office was chaos. Furniture upturned, papers scattered, blood staining the floor where Deputy Owen Pike lay slumped in the corner, unconscious but alive. Two hostages, Martha Keene, the clerk, bleeding from a shoulder wound but still conscious, and Lily Moore, terrified but unharmed, her wide eyes filled with panic. "You ruined everything!" Boone Rask spat at Clara Wyatt, his voice breaking, a mix of tears and rage. "I had a life, a job, money. Silas Crowe paid well. I was somebody. Then you came back from the dead. You escaped. You testified. You destroyed Silas Crowe. And you destroyed me. Got me locked up for 10 years. 10 years of my life gone. Because you couldn't just die quietly like you were supposed to." "You chained me," Clara Wyatt said, her voice eerily calm despite everything. "You beat me when I wouldn't sign Silas Crowe's papers. You starved me. You were going to kill me, Boone. You chose to work for a murderer. You chose to kidnap me. You chose to torture me. You chose to help Silas Crowe kill my father. Those were your choices, not mine. Your choices. And now you're facing consequences. That's not my fault. That's yours. You chose wrong. You did evil things, and now you're paying for them. That's called justice, not revenge. Silas Crowe paid me $50,000, Boone Rask shouted, voice rising in desperation. To help him, to do what he needed. I had gambling debts, people threatening to kill me. I needed that money.
What was I supposed to do?
Clara Wyatt's voice rose, filled with the release of years of fear and rage. "Not kidnap and torture an innocent woman. Not help murder someone's father. Not become a monster just because someone offered you money. Boone, people have choices. You had choices. You chose wrong. You chose evil. You chose to hurt people who never hurt you. And now, you're facing consequences. That's how the world works. That's called justice. And you're not getting revenge. You're not killing me or anyone else. You're going back to prison. And you're going to serve your sentence, all of it, because you deserve it, because you earned it, because evil has consequences. You think you're so righteous, Boone Rask? Clara Wyatt said, her voice growing colder, cutting through his excuses. You think you're better than me? With your money, your Apache lover, your perfect new life? But you're not better. You're just luckier. You were born rich, and I was born poor.
You had choices. I didn't. You got to be good because it was easy. I had to be bad to survive.
That's a lie, Koda said, his voice as cold and hard as the mountains. For the first time he spoke, cutting through the tension like a knife. I was born Apache, in a world that wants all Apache dead. I watched my entire family burn alive. I had no choices, no options, no money, no power, nothing. But I didn't become a monster. I didn't torture people for money. I didn't help murderers.
I stayed human. I stayed good. Because, Boone, being good is a choice. It's hard. It costs. But it's a choice. You chose wrong. Don't blame Clara Wyatt for your choices. Don't blame the world. You chose. You failed. And now you're facing the consequences. Accept it. Surrender. Let these innocent people go. End this before you make it worse. It can't get worse, Boone Rask screamed, his anger reaching a fever pitch. I've lost everything. I'm going to die in prison. My life is over, so I'm taking you with me. He raised the gun, aiming it squarely at Clara Wyatt. His finger tightened on the trigger. Intent clear. Death was coming. No more talking. No more negotiating. But Koda moved, fast, impossible fast. Decades of survival instincts kicked in, and he lunged. He knocked Boone Rask's arm aside just as the gun fired. Bang! The bullet hit the ceiling, not Clara Wyatt, not anyone, just the wooden plaster above them. They fought, desperate, vicious. Boone Rask was huge, but clumsy. Koda was smaller, faster, and more skilled. They crashed into furniture, breaking chairs, destroying the office. It was a fight for survival, for justice, for everything that mattered. Meanwhile, Clara Wyatt grabbed Martha Keene, helping her up, getting her out the door. She came back for Lily Moore, pulling her out too, all while screaming for the sheriff, for help, for backup, for this nightmare to finally end. Inside, the fight raged on between Koda and Boone Rask. Boone pulled a knife from his boot, slashing wildly, the blade catching Koda's arm. Blood welled up, pain seared through him, but Koda didn't falter. He couldn't stop. He seized Boone's wrist, twisting hard, sending the knife clattering to the floor. With precise, brutal force, Koda struck, punching Boone in the temple, the jaw, the solar plexus. Each hit aimed to disable, to end the fight. Boone dropped to the ground, groaning, blood pouring from his nose and mouth, knocked unconscious, or close to it. The fight was over. Koda stood over him, breathing heavily, watching as the deputies rushed in. They took control of Boone, securing him so he couldn't hurt anyone again. Outside, Clara Wyatt ran to Koda, panic in her voice. You're hurt! Your arm! You're bleeding! You need— I'm fine, Koda said, glancing at the shallow cut on his arm. It stung, but it wasn't serious. Nothing Dr. Samuel Reed can't stitch up in 20 minutes. It's just a scratch, nothing more. Clara Wyatt exhaled, her relief palpable, but her worry didn't leave her eyes. Are you okay?
she asked, her voice soft with concern. He didn't hurt you, didn't? I'm okay, Koda replied, his gaze meeting hers. Thanks to you. He paused, taking a breath. Again. You saved me. Again. She shook her head, tears forming. How many times are you going to save my life? She whispered, her voice full of love and admiration. Koda pulled her close, his hands steady as he held her tight. As many times as it takes, he said, his voice low and certain. As many times as you need. Forever, if necessary. Clara Wyatt smiled through her tears, relief mixing with love and joy. We've already been married for over a year, she laughed softly, leaning into him. I already have you. You already have me. Forever. Always. Until death parts us. And maybe not even then. A wave of warmth spread through Koda's chest, his heart full. He cupped her face, his voice trembling slightly, filled with all the emotion he had kept locked away. I want to stay married, he said, his words firm. I want to keep building this life, this dream, this world we're creating. Together. Always together. He looked out at the horizon, imagining what lay ahead. But for the first time in years, he saw a future. One filled with hope and a love that would endure everything. We have a date with our next adventure, he whispered, smiling as he held her close. All stories are created for entertainment purposes and may include fictional elements or dramatized interpretations inspired by historical settings. We use AI tools, voiceover, visuals, scripts, as creative assistants. However, all content is reviewed, refined, and edited by humans to ensure emotional authenticity and storytelling quality. We fully comply with YouTube's policies regarding AI-generated content and do not use any deepfake techniques or misleading recreations of real individuals. All visuals and supporting materials are properly licensed. Sharing, re-uploading, modifying, or distributing any part of this content in any form requires written permission. We appreciate your support and respect for original creative work.